someone else who.
Whilst people are settling down, I'll read the normal paper that has to be read before the meeting starts, and I will start with accordance with the openness of local bodies regulation 2014. This meeting is being live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed or communicated in any other media platforms. Recording of this meeting will be made available on the council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. Both councillors and officers in attendance are reminded to make full use of and to speak clearly into the microphones available. A reminder that mobile phones should be turned off or put on the silent mode. Those present at the meeting should refrain from taking calls. There are no members of the public, so I don't need to read that bit out. Further view, we'll go on to the agenda. First of all, apologies for absence, please.
Apologies from Councillor Joshi, she's been delayed and will be a few minutes late.
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Joshi and Councillor
I think, can it be recorded that Sally Hack is actually representing us at the LGA? That's the reason why she's not there.
Yeah, she's there at the moment. Go to item 2, appointment of substitutes. No substitutes. Any declarations of interest on item 3? No declarations, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Read, confirm and sign the minutes in previous meetings in accordance with Rule 19 of Part 4 of the Constitution. Move. I'll second that from the chair. Everybody happy with that? I mean, obviously, an achievement here at that time. So we'll move that. And there's a new signing situation, Adam, isn't there, where once everybody's approved it, is signed electronically, I think. Okay. Move that. Okay. Actions arising from the previous minutes. There are no actions there. Item 6, petitions and deputations, there's none there. No petitions and deputations. So, before we move on to item 7, we've got some new members sitting in front. We've got a couple of members sitting here. So perhaps maybe you'd like to introduce yourself so that we know who we're addressing, please.
Bev Ball, Head of Finance.
Grant Patterson from Grant Thornton, the council's external auditors.
Ruth Leo, 360 Assurance, your internal audit manager.
I'm Mark Watkins, also 360 Assurance, Head of Audit.
Adam from Democratic Electoral Services.
And then from my right, please.
Bangor recycled councillor from Better Court Ward in Wheatstone.
Okay. Pretty Joshi, Grange Ward, OP.
Catherine Ridley, OP St Peter's Ward.
Then we'll chair the audit committee. So,
Bill Bolter, Wixton Fields Ward.
Jeffrey Croftman, OB Broxton.
thank you everybody for that. I've had to introduce an item 6A for the purpose of the external audit, Grant Thornton, who's going to give us an update on where he is so far with the external audit. If that's okay with everybody, we can move on with Grant.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just think of the opportunity to give
Sorry, beg your pardon. Sorry, Jeffrey, I'll bring you in after Grant.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, Grant.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Just a brief update from a verbal update from us today in terms of where we are. Last couple of months, we've been focusing on auditing of NHS accounts because there's a sort of May, June for that. In terms of where we are with the council's financial statements on 21-22, we completed the majority of our audit work. We have agreed pension fund adjustments with the finance team. We still are finalising our property, plant and equipment work, but I'm not anticipating that requiring any adjustments to the accounts. There may well be, I think, some similar reporting to last year around floor areas. Subject to that, we would be in a position to finalise the audit. The new issue that's arisen, I suppose, since the last audit committee is in relation to the information that's available in related to the calculation of the pensions and the council's net pension fund liability. The triennial valuation of the pension fund is now been published. That came out at the end of March, early April. There have been significant movements within the pension fund, and the valuation of the pension fund is as at the 31st of March 2022. So the actuaries have a year to undertake that valuation. And the information within that triennial valuation, some of which will give an indication of conditions that existed as at the 31st of March 2022, that potentially would lead to a change in the estimated net pension liability of the council. Some of that information used would not have some financial assumption at that point in time, but the trial evaluation also looks at some demographic data, such as mortality data, etc., which would have been extant at the end of March 2022, and then both accounting standards and auditing standards require us to review, or ask accountants to review their estimate. Now, the only way the council can do that realistically is getting an updated report from the actuary. So we've had a conversation this afternoon in relation to that. There have been conversations nationally about whether, I think as councils are aware, there's a large backlog of incomplete audited accounts nationally. There were discussions with the FRC and the NAO to see whether there could be a workaround. That hasn't come to fruition, and I mean, our view is in order to get the account signed, we're going to progress down on this route. The positive side of that, I suppose, to a certain extent, is unlike when I know the council wasn't particularly impacted by infrastructure, it is a known way of auditing. We have a process for doing this, and therefore our proposal is once the council gets the updated IF 19 report, if that then indicates there is a material change to the accounts, and I suspect there will be, given the value that the pension fund has moved, once those adjustments have been put through, it should be relatively straightforward for us to audit, and the plan is that we will complete that work and look to finalise it audit by the end of this month. So 2021-22, we are looking to finalise it audit by the end of this month. As we've already reported on value for money, that will also allow me to certify that audit closed. And then we would then move on to 22-23, and I would have to come back, and I would propose to come back to you through your one officer with a detailed plan on that basis on when we're conducting the 22-23 audit. I think we are currently going through a refresh of our overall delivery plan. I think we are aiming to, as has moved in September, we will seek to get as many audits finished by September. I think the reality is we are looking more towards the end of the calendar year to sort of catch up as a firm, and maybe some into January. So that's the reality, and I'm not quite sure where you, at the moment, would sit within that timeline, but I'll come back to you once we've done our refresh. So I was going to stop there. Happy to take questions.
Any questions, John? Colin?
Thank you, Chair.
As it's now 15 months after the end of the year, I mean, you know, and I've just joined council, why is it taking so long?
A second question would be, are we going to be sitting here in a year's time, not having signed off 22-23?
Do you have the resources to do the audits that
Got?
There's a series of questions within that. In terms of the first, how would we end up here? I think that primarily is still working through a lot of the challenges that came out of the pandemic, where audits did take longer to do remotely, and I think also even trying to work our way through that backlog. It's strong on it.
No, you're on.
Sorry, I know. Okay, sorry about that. I mean, there is also, I suppose, working with councils. I think a number of in terms of councils having the resources to prepare accounts and the focus where as maybe in relation to preparing other accounts. I mean, we have done a paper where we feel that some of the elements have driven that, and potentially, I suppose, there's nothing around. Currently, there isn't. There isn't. If you don't submit your account, it is more of an accountability issue rather than there are no penalties per se for the council. So a lot of it has been driven by, having driven by the pandemic. We are getting away through that. I think in the Midlands, apart from some councils, we have a handful. The majority we will be looking to finish by the end of this month. Right again. Let's see if it's stable. In terms of we will be here at the same point, I think that comes back to what I was saying originally, is we are looking to get our backlog up by the end of this year for 22-23, and therefore, no, we should not be here in the same place as we are now for 22-23. Do we have the resources? Right, okay. Yes, we do believe we have the resources now to deliver to that end of year calendar. We're also investing heavily as a firm in more people. We actually have some people join us over summer, and then we have a big graduate intake in September. So we are building greater resilience, and in a way that then aligns more with the new contract that comes in for 23-24 in relation to delivering that. So we are investing. We will have more people, and actually as a firm coming out of a lot of contract, slightly through audits as well. So the balance of that in terms of investing in people and having a smaller portfolio, I am confident that come 23-24, we'll be back into what I would consider to be more of a normal audit cycle, but it will take us the end of this year to get there.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get a handle on here is, have the delays been caused by you as Grant Thornton, or have they been caused by the council not giving you the information you need at the time that you needed it?
I think there's a combination of both of that. We have sort of struggled, as I was saying, efficiently auditing remotely. We have had specific challenges here, sort of backlogging to 2021 in relation to information that was available, and I think that's been well rehearsed through various reporting, and that has had a knock-on effect. The council has been investing within its finance team as well, so I think we are getting to the point now where a lot of those, I suppose, information issues are being addressed by the council. So that was part of the delay for 2021 and into 21-22. We've had a lot of challenges, certainly around the collection fund in the past, and to a certain extent around property, plant and equipment, and in terms of valuations and evidence around that. So it's been a combination. I mean, I don't think it's the right environment to say a blame culture in that sense. I think it's a combination of the two. We've been working positively with the council to get through that. I mean, the most of it, I think, in terms of 2021 was certainly struggling to get the relevant information in the right format at the right time. And a lot of that was the council going through a period of change. There were a number of interim people coming in and out as well, and there's a change of systems. I think you're in a much better position now going forward. So it's been a combination of those factors that documented for our audit findings reports over the last couple of years in terms of that. But I'm hopeful now that we're in a more stable position, both with yourselves. The team is stable for this year as well. So I'm confident, not happy, not as confident as can be, that we should have a much smoother audit is 22-23.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Pretty first.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I know earlier this year when we were doing the audits, etc., we were penalised for sending in accounts late. Our budget showed its expected value of 57,000. I think we paid more. Was that what it was about? Was we were late in filing that through?
Right, there wasn't a fine or a penalty. That was basically picking up on the previous councillor's question, and what the 2021 audit took eventually twice as long to complete as it should have done. Therefore, effectively, the audit fee reflected that, and that was driven a lot by information problems, if you know what I mean. So that was to do more with the length of time it took. It's not a penalty for not filing. The way the Act is constructed is you're required to publish audited accounts by, at that time, by the end of November. But if you don't publish them, you then publish saying we're not published and the reason for it. So it's not like, I think some people here are in the commercial sector in Companies House where you get a fine for late filing. There's not that sort of regime in place. It's not good practice, this is more to do with accountability to the public overall, and that's why there's basically an inquiry going through Parliament now to look at backlogs overall, and then how it might be to reset the system so that we can then get back into, everybody can then get back into making sure that accountability rolls forward.
Thank you. I think probably I worded it wrong, not such a penalty, but I think we had to pay extra audit fees. So we don't want to be in that situation next time, that really if it's going to take that much longer. So I think we have got a robust financial team on board. We're hoping that won't happen again. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Excuse me, thank you, Chair. Just to echo what the external auditor said, I've been on this committee most of the time I've been a councillor since 2019, and a lot of that was the pandemic, and the external auditors have kept the committee informed both remotely and when we went back to being in person about the issues that were arising from the pandemic and the unusual circumstances that brought. And you mentioned the parliamentary inquiry, or somebody did anyway, and I guess that means, well, my first question is, these issues with sort of delays and so on, and difficulties getting back onto the normal audit cycle, we're not on our own. This is just to ask the question, does this apply to most other councils, all other councils in your experience?
I wouldn't say, I have to admit, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I think there was I think someone was suggesting at one point, I think there might be 1,000 sets of accounts over 2 or 3 years that are yet to be finalised. I think we probably, sort of in the Midlands, we're ahead of that. I mean, there are a number, we are working through, in terms of 21-22. I was about to say about 25% of our audits are there, you know what I mean, but not everyone's signed yet. So I think, no, you're not alone, but yes, I quite agree with the former councillor. You don't want, it's not a place you want to be. I think the combination of, as I say, getting back onto track in 22-23 should enable that. I mean, I will say that, as part of 23-24 contract, I think that does show that the reset audit fees, which in a way comes back, I think, to you on the former questions about enabling us to have the funds to invest, to make sure that we don't get into this position again. So a lot of that is around, and maybe debating around whether the audit fees in the past too low, because that does contribute. That might be part of it. There's not a simple one. If there was a simple answer, for me to go, we're late because something failed or something like that, I tell you that it's a combination of things. I think in terms of the pandemic, making an audit an attractive place for people to come and work, because I think there's been a lot of, regulatory scrutiny, so we have struggled to recruit. And actually, if you look across, I think nationally, I think most of the audit firms would say in over the last 2, 3, 4 years, it's been hard to get the people in. I think now that we are investing, we are making it more attractive to people. I think that's part of it, is to make audit attractive for people to come in. So we're making strides in that position, and hopefully they're going to get into the next 5-year cycle of the contract. Everybody will be in a much better position, and I think we should be able to get back on track in accountability. I think there is maybe a debate to be had around is the end of September most achievable date, given the expectations on quality. That's more of a conversation with government, I think, around could we get everything to the right quality standards. But there are also conversations going on with the FRC around what we need to focus on as auditors as well. So they are taking their system leading responsibilities seriously, and we're waiting to get back from them around, because I'm sure in the last couple of years you will probably heard me banging on about property, plant, equipment and the net pension liability, both of which ultimately don't necessarily impact on capital tax. You need to manage them well, but they don't. So, I think we've been saying, well, that's what the accounting standards do. That's what drive us as auditors in terms of reporting that. Is there a better way of doing that? Can we? So we're talking to a regulator as well around what level of scrutiny or whatever, or what level of quality they would expect, because those numbers don't change that much in that sense in the accounts. And it's sort of getting the risk ratio right around that. So if we can do that, we might have more efficient audit. Again, that will speed up the audit process. So there's a combination, there's a whole sort of conversation going on in that respect.
Thank you. Any other questions of Grant? Bill?
Yeah, it's all part of the same subject, isn't it? We've been arguing this now for some time. The old audit office went and they privatised it. Companies then advertised and they won some contracts, went out again. Fewer companies actually apply to do council audits. I think about 5 companies in the country now only do council audits. Very, very small number. So it's been concentrated right down to these hands. And government legislation keeps coming forward. You've got to look at more things, do more reports, everything else. And that will be staff shortage on your side and our side, all impact on what we can deliver at the dates. So it's a combination of everything, but as far as I know, every council is in the same situation. All the auditors are struggling to get things done on time, understand the new legislation, what they have to do. So it's just a big combination of things. So hopefully it'll be sorted out. You'll have staff changes, we've had staff changes, working remotely, different to coming in the office and looking at the book, so to speak. It all impacts on the time that you can do. So hopefully we can move forward. But it's rest assured we have been challenging the auditors throughout the process, as you will hear, especially on the price.
Jeffrey?
Chair, I have an additional problem. It appears that since I got re-elected, somebody's made an arbitrary decision that I can no longer have the papers for this committee as in paper. I have an eyesight problem at the moment and I've been struggling. So whatever I've done here, I've now got one arm tied behind my back. And I'd like to know why somebody could make an arbitrary decision. Before the election, I managed to get a set of papers here. Here I'm struggling with this, and I have to say I really do struggle in order to do the job that I'm asked to come here for.
Do you want to answer that, maybe?
Yeah, I believe this has been raised with the monitor officer, and he is looking at that situation, and so I get some feedback on what the revised provision will be, but it is being looked into in a minute, that decision.
Well, I wish it had been looked at before somebody made an arbitrary decision. I thought we had equalities in this council, and somebody has got a poor eyesight or whatever it is should have automatically allowed them. The officers knew about it. And so I've got some questions, and I've done my best on this machine here, which I find difficult to use. But so in future, perhaps, I'd like to I've made my point.
Yeah, it is,
On record, Jeff, yeah.
yeah, it is being reviewed.
Yeah, being reviewed.
There will be changes coming forward.
Sorry, Richard. Can I echo Councillor Kaufman's comments on this? I mean, I've read papers because I've printed everything off. I certainly can't review the numbers within this pack on screen.
It's just time.
That's very helpful. I think that,
I'm sorry, and my machine, despite being charged all day long, seems to have just died on me. So I really don't know which way to, it's back again. We're back again. Now, anyway, I've made the point. It's something that I don't know what we're going to do as a council, but
I think you're going to, it's a good point made, and by Colin, and I think there's a challenge for the officers to do something about it. But I must have on record that members make policy, not officers. That is important. In this particular case, it's been the dog wagging the tail, if I might say, and that's got to stop. We will make sure that we move forward together as partners and make everybody satisfied with what we're trying to achieve on behalf of our residents and getting value from money through what we want. That can only happen if we work in partnership together with communication. But you made a point, very well made, both times. Thank you. No more comments for Grant, is he? Can he leave? I will say thank you very much for your time and patience, and our time and patience, because the comments that have been made are quite valid. But having been through all this for the last 2 or 3 years, it is important to remember, you're quite right, there's no blame anywhere other than the fact that circumstances dictated the way we moved forward with all of this. And yes, another organisation in our work I sit on a committee for are in the very same position as we are now, but their value of money is a lot higher. So we're not saying or challenging them and saying it's yours, your fault. We're working through together as a partner to try and get an end result we want for the people of this community. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Chair. I think we're here to give an independent view. If I feel I need to come back and say I need, I'll take more work, that comes through the process, but we'll always sit here and give the independent view. That's what our role is. And we expect challenge. We expect challenge back. Might not, say that, but it's sometimes it is, that engagement is important. I don't want to sit in committees where it's all quiet and they go, thank you very much. I'd rather have that conversation and just that engagement and challenge, and we're happy to answer any questions. Just discussing that there are some new firms coming in as part of that new contract. PSA was trying to encourage new firms into the market, so there are a couple more new ones coming into the market this year. I think you're right, it's just a big hurdle. The entry hurdle is quite high now with the quality regime. A lot of the audits are in the FRC population and quite certainly up to quite. So yes, they try to make that, trying to work that to get more people in. I think the challenge at the moment is growing the number of people to do the audits across all of those firms. And we're certainly investing, other firms are investing, I'm sure, as well. And that's the bigger challenge going to make it a sustainable business going forward.
Thank you. Can we move on now? Yeah, thank you very much. And are you stopping with us or?
Yeah, I have to stay here, so
no problem.
We have to read all that. It's easier for me to be here and listen actually than it is to talk briefly. Minutes.
So now we'll get back onto the agenda, which is item 7, which is the internal audit annual report and opinion. I think that's Mark, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I go into the main item this evening, just to explain, obviously, the committee generally used to see just me come to the committees. So it's the first time that my colleague Ruby has been at this committee. But there is a reason for that, which is I'm taking the opportunity to get my work-life balance a little better. So I'm stepping back from my role over in Wigston, which I've been delivering for about the last 4 years or so. So this will actually be my last attendance at the audit committee. Just like to say, before we go into the annual opinion, how much of a privilege it's been working for OB in Wigston, working with you as a committee and with the officers of OB in Wigston. I've really enjoyed my time. I'm sad to go, but I do need to address the work-life balance a bit better. So Ruby has been the audit manager at OB in Wigston for about the last 3 or 4 years now? 3 years. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? Yeah. So Ruby's got that level of continuity going forward and may well get a bit more involved in coming to audit committee meetings. And there's a lady called Tracy Barnard-Gort who will be sort of taking sort of overall responsibility going forward as I sort of relinquish that. I am around for the next couple of months to the end of August, trying to make sure there's a smooth transition for the 23-24 work, trying to get as much of the 23-24 plan up and running before handing that over. So hopefully there shouldn't be really any disruption to that.
Thank you. Can I, before you go any further, I have made a mistake. We've got somebody on camera, which is Sal Khan. Well, it was there a minute ago. He's actually part of the meeting and will be presenting my further on. I forgot to introduce him to everybody, so that's my fault. My apologies to Sal when he comes back. So called that. I didn't miss that. So Mark, carry on.
Thank you, Chair. So you have before the committee this evening my annual report and head of audit opinion for the 22-23 year. So under the requirements of public sector internal audit standards, I'm required to provide an overall annual opinion, which is based on all of the work that we've undertaken during the year. So members of the committee will be familiar about this time of year that I produce and submit an annual report which pulls together all the work that we've done during the year, that we've been updating the committee during the course of the year into one annual report, which includes my head of audit opinion. The opinion is one of the things that contributes to and should be referred to in the annual government statement. So contributes to that. I believe that's also on the agenda for this evening. So my work feeds into the annual government statement. So without further ado, just to summarise the opinion, overall we have provided a significant assurance opinion that the systems of control are generally sound. That's based on 15 different individual assurance opinions given during the year on the assignments that we've done, and those are all summarised in the report. So there was one full assurance, there were 10 significant assurance opinions, there were 4 moderate assurance opinions, and there were no limited or no assurance opinions. My annual report summarises what some of the issues were for those areas where we only provided moderate assurance. The other thing my annual report must do is to flag up whether I feel there's anything in my work that would constitute a significant control issue that should be formally disclosed in the annual governance statement. I'm happy to say that we didn't find any issues that I would deem serious enough to be designated a significant control issue as far as the annual government statement is concerned, although I have recommended in the report that the annual government statement should include some reference to the challenging financial situation that the council currently finds itself in, the cost pressures that it's facing, and the fact that it will need to solve those cost pressures going forward. I don't feel that that's a significant control issue, but I do think it's something that should be flagged up in the annual government statement. That's a summary of the report that you have before you now. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Can I ask you, is there any questions you want to ask on any of the pages? Could you just identify the page number so that we can all join it and ask you questions? That's okay. Yeah. Any question? Any questions?
For my page, the reports page, the whole thing's page 13. And I've got a note here. I wondered if you could explain a bit more the way you think the street cleaning and ground maintenance contract. It's on your report 4, but page 13 of the...
Yes.
Page 13. At the bottom.
Right, yeah, okay. We undertook this piece of work part-way through a sort of a significant restructuring process that was being undertaken for the Clean and Green team. The audit confirmed that progress was being made on a number of areas that the restructure was designed to address, but that it was taking a bit longer than had initially been planned. So the restructure included some new key posts which took longer to appoint than was hoped for, in particular the supervisor role, which was filled in January of 2023. That supervisor role would take forward quite a number of different elements of work that needed to take place around things like new job specifications, a new set of documentations to record street cleaning results and grounds maintenance activity, a better monitoring system to look at the quality and record the quality of street cleaning. There were some issues around risk assessments, health and safety risk assessments being quite old and needing to be revised. There were also some issues around health and safety refresher training for team members that were on the Clean and Green team. So there were a number of things where progress was being made, but it wasn't. Sorry. Everybody's been able to hear that. I hope I don't have to start again. You can't hear that. Sorry. So yeah, that's the reason we gave it moderate assurance, that we could see some progress was being made, but there were a number of areas which management were fully aware of and were taking action on, where further work was needed before we could get to the point where a fully satisfactory process is in place.
So before you leave us, are you fairly assured that your recommendations and the improvements are actually happening and that management has taken note of that? Because one of the problems I've been noticing as a layperson is that we seem to have, at the very least, have difficulty emptying our litter bins when they're full. And I put that down to a dodgy system or whatever it is. So that was my grouse, so that's the one that was immediately obvious to anybody walking along. But are you happy that the management is able to put things right?
The actions that were agreed at the time that the audit was finalised, as long as those actions are completed in accordance with the timelines that are agreed in the report, should improve the Clean and Green function to an appropriate standard. All of those actions they've been transferred from the old CW audit tracking system to 360 assurances tracking system. So that transfer process was taking place at the time I was pulling this annual report together. So when Ruby brings the progress report, next progress report to, I think is it October is the next audit committee date, early October?
Yes.
We'll be able to provide the committee with a view on how well those recommendations have been implemented at that stage.
Do you want to come back, Jeff, and then Bill?
Well, I have another question relating to the premises licensing.
Can we just answer, is this to do with what Jeffrey's been talking about, Bill?
Yes.
Bill,
The report went to services a little while ago about bin emptying and everything else, and the rounds rationalisation, and a number of people carrying out the task. And as you say, management have taken notice of that and actually put some actions in place. And you should, by now, be seeing some improvement. Biggest problem is educating members of the public not to put domestic rubbish in the bins. They are not for domestic rubbish. They're for people going around and putting things in. We have a number of problems, particularly in Bell Street, where we've renewed all the bins to larger size bins now. Hopefully that will solve some of the problems in Bell Street. If it works, we can progress that elsewhere in the borough, but it's a matter of trialling it. But you have to remember that, you know, to pick up rubbish costs a lot of money. And it shouldn't be there in the first place. People should, by now, learn to take their rubbish home, not drop it in the street or fill litter bins up with things that shouldn't go in them. It's there as a service. We're also working with the Wombles, you should perhaps know about, which are a very worthwhile organisation. So hopefully we're through the worst and we're going into the future.
okay, Jeffrey, second question.
Yeah, it's premises licensing just further down. Whatever comments you've got on that with particular, have we actually been able to identify the annual fees, and are we raising and getting the money in accordingly? It seems incredible to me that that should be on there. Very sad.
I met with Dave Gill earlier this week and we were talking about that very subject. Some additional resource has been brought in to identify the level of unpaid annual fees, and it wasn't quite as simple as just looking back at the register of premises, because as the work progressed, there were a number of duplicates, etc., on the register, which they had to be resolved before we could get to a figure of how much annual income had not been collected. I believe from the conversation I had with Dave Gill that figure has now been arrived at, and that income is being chased. Going forward, moving to actually invoicing for it, which wasn't happening previously, so the council is being much more proactive in invoicing for the annual fee of premises. So again, going forward, that should be better, but there is this issue about identifying how much we're owed and then getting it, chasing for it.
So if I understand correctly, the amount that may be owed is less because you've duplicated some of them, so you find out actually what's owed and progress is being made in collecting what's actually owed.
I think the idea was that didn't want to go chasing for income that actually wasn't due, so we needed to make sure our records were fully accurate before we started asking for this income to be paid.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, David. Colin?
Thank you, Chair. Page 14. I've got two comments. I want to add a further question in response to the reply we've just heard. Under project management, we talk about the corporate project
Could someone explain what that is, please? Under premises licensing, it says that an action plan is already in place. Now, I couldn't find that on the council's website, so I'm not certain where to look for that. And my follow-up question, if there's an issue with perhaps duplicate records or missing records, which I think there is from what we've just been told, is the external auditor comfortable that the records are accurate for 21-22? Or is it a case of saying, well, the maps aren't material? Thank you.
I have to admit, I don't know what the number in the accounts is off the top of my head, so I mean, our materiality is around about 420,000, something like that, so I'd have to check. But I have to admit, I don't know, I just need to follow that up, find out what the potential impact would be.
Mark? Any comments?
I think when you do follow that, you're probably thinking that it will probably not be material in terms of the income that hasn't been collected, but obviously that will become apparent when you go through that. But I feel that it probably won't be material from an external auditor's perspective.
Yeah.
So it's more of a control weakness, operational control weakness that needs to be resolved. Okay, can I just ask what the other questions were, Councillor?
Corporate Project Board, what is it, please? Because I only just joined, so.
It's okay.
The report says there's an action plan already in place in respect to premises licensing. I searched the council's website for that and couldn't come up with anything. So just a case of where is it? Has that gone to a committee? Which committee? How do I get hold of a copy? Thank you.
Anybody taking that one?
In terms of the corporate project board, so that's an officers group that needs to discuss the corporate projects. In terms of the licensing action plan,
Senior management team.
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know if it's been to a committee or if it was a response to the audit recommendation. I'll have to feedback to you on that one. I don't know at this point.
It says it's already in place. I don't know whether someone's jumped the gun on that.
In terms of the actions that they've implemented, like that Mark's sort of alluded to, there's been some updates to the system, there's been some resource brought in, so that would have been part of the action plan to rectify the recommendation, put those recommendations in place.
It's the issue that it's not.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah. It's the issue I'd like to see it. Is it going to be on the website or?
I think the action plan was probably added to as a result of the audit, but there were already some areas that management had already identified as needing to be dealt with. I think it's probably internal rather than having gone to the licensing committee. It would be Dave Gill or John Wells that would be able to provide the action plan to improvement plan, if you like.
Yeah, I'll get an update from Dave Gill and John Wells on the action plan.
Thank you. I was just trying to get an understanding of the reporting mechanism for this and whether it's bypassed members.
I'll find out what the process is for the action.
We do on occasions invite the relevant officer to this meeting, so that things that can be dealt with there and then, rather than that's it over and say, well, people will mean I'll talk to so-and-so, or I'll talk to so-and-so, that perpetuates the delay. So, in some circumstances, we invite various officers to come to this meeting, so you can ask those questions, which is good. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Yeah.
to the chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just on the action plan, we just had a undertaking with officers, try to find out if it is something that's publishable to the councillors, and if not, why not? So we just have a reason, thanks. On the side, I just want to, my question was on the Clean and Green team, has been answered to an extent. I'd just like to reiterate, because it's one of the most visible services in the council. It's, you know, keeping the streets clean, emptying lift bins. It's something we get, might get casework about or notice. So I think it's quite important, although, you know, part of the audit process is just one of our services, but it isn't a very visible one. And at the same time, I'd just like to take the opportunity to, again, echo what my colleague said about thanking volunteer groups who also help with this, it's on like the One Balls and also the private borough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, if my memory serves me correct, licensing committee challenged officers to bring forward an action plan, actually implement an action plan to bring the money in to chase who have not been paid. So that's, members have done their bit, making sure officers are actually chasing the money. Well, the action plan actually came to members, I can't remember, but it wouldn't be necessary to do so because members asked the officers to implement an action plan for them to actually get the money in. Not for us to do it. It's up to officers to do that. We merely tell them what we need them to do, and they should get on with it and do it that way. So perhaps we're not seeing the action plan. I'm sure officers have been working on an action plan to bring up the money that we, as members, said should be forthcoming.
Any comments, Mark? Oh, yeah, okay. Have you finished this report now? Shall we move?
More questions then?
Any more questions? Okay, here we go. Let's go back to item 7 on page 6. The recommendation is there that the report included in the audit opinion of the adequacy and effectiveness of the council's arrangements for governance, risk management and internal control as set out in Appendix 1 be noted. I'll move it from the chair. We can note it. No dissenters. Okay. Thank you very much. So, then go on to item 8, which is the annual governance. That is Sal, if I understand. Is that right?
Thank you, Chair. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So each year the council is required to conduct a review of the effectiveness of its systems of internal control and approve an annual governance statement, or an AGS. What you have in front of you is a very lengthy and detailed document, most of which was completed by the previous Section 151 officer around the time you had the progress update in April 2023. The aim is for this draft annual governance statement to be eventually published alongside our draft statement of accounts for 2023 on the council's website when it's out for audit. In terms of the annual governance statement, it follows the format that you're used to as the committee. Section 1 provides the background and the scope of responsibility, and this is basically the introduction to the AGS. It states that we've adopted a code of corporate governance, which is consistent with the principles of the SIPFA and SOLIS framework. Section 2 is the purpose of the governance framework, and this describes what the framework is and what it should do. It goes on to explain that the framework at the council comprises its systems, processes, culture and values, which the council has adopted in order to deliver on an agreed set of principles. Section 3 describes the council's governance framework, and it provides information on the governance structure, the role of the committee system. It provides information on the council's vision, priorities within the 5 strategic objectives of our council, our communities, our economy, our environment, and our partners. It describes the current corporate plan, what the approach is to financial management, decision making, scrutiny and governance. It also describes our internal audit and our external audit arrangements and financial management arrangements, the role of the statutory officers and what the senior leadership team does. It references our standards of conduct, policy compliance with legislation, and how we review the effectiveness of the governance framework. It highlights the work that internal and external audit does, the council's approachment to risk management, the role of the statutory officers, and how the council deals with constitutional and conduct matters. Section 4 then provides a review of the effectiveness of the council's framework. It looks at the previous year and the progress on the improvement table that was identified back then. So you can see there's been quite a lot of progress, made against the improvement table. There were 29 original targets, 16 of which were completed, which leaves 13, and then 5 new ones have been added. Section 5 provides the overall conclusion, and that is that appropriate governance arrangements are in place. However, the council remains committed to maintaining and, where possible, improving these arrangements by proactively addressing the cost pressures which have been identified and those issues identified in undertaking the annual review. The council will continue to seek to enhance and strengthen governance arrangements within these areas for improvements and monitor progress made as part of our next annual review. Section 6 of the AGS then provides a draft leader and chief executive sign-off. The following section details the assurance assessment that has been undertaken, and this covers the 7 core principles of the SIPFA Solace guidance. It determines a position for the council against each of the SIPFA Solace framework requirements of either good, fair or poor, and the committee will be pleased to note that there are no poor assessments. On that note, Chair, I'm handing back to you and happy to take questions on the detail of the report.
Thank you, Sam. Any questions on this particular? Oh, Councillor Cuffman.
Can I refer to page 26 of the
26
of the paper? External audit arrangements.
Yep.
Well, it says the latest training session was held in June 2022, which, if that is correct, it would mean that several members sitting around here haven't been trained.
Fair comment.
Okay. There was a financial management training session as part of the induction programme, and we will be picking up further training for members during the course of the year. But this is the statement as it was at the end of March 2023, so it is factually correct. But if you point to each councillor that we need more risk management training, we'll take that on board.
Right. Okay. I'm going to page 25. The financial management, the second paragraph, the impact that statement has on local authorities when it comes to future funding, because it just says, if I might, that the council budgets at high levels of forthcoming years, given the complete lack of clarity from central government regarding future funding for local authorities. And the council has a good track record of financial management and internal control. The resources are necessarily limited and significant net savings year on year continue to be required. It's that sentence about the lack of clarity from central government and the impact that has on local authorities. Is that significant?
I think members will recall when the MTFS was probably brought to full council. There's been a number of years where councils have been looking for stability and looking for the outcome of the government's financial reforms. COVID's had a part to play on that. We know now we've had a settlement for a couple of years, so there's a level of stability. It's not an ideal situation. We know that new homes bonus is coming to an end. We don't know what's going to replace that. We don't know what's going to be happening around the business rates reset and how that's going to pan out in the future. So there's a level of uncertainty for all local authorities, as we are in a situation where were not very successful in terms of government settlements and some of the initiatives that have come forward in previous years. It has more of an impact on us, and so the longer that the delays go on, I suppose the longer the situation is the worse the situation is for an organisation like Corby Wigston, which doesn't benefit from the current situation. Does that make sense, Chair?
Yes, thank you. Okay. Any other questions of Sal? No?
Yes, Colin.
Oh, Colin.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a number of questions on different pages, so with your permission, I'll do it pages.
Okay, yeah, fine, thank you.
Okay. My first question is on page 39. The improvement of reviewing staff performance appraisal approach was targeted for April. We're now in July. Where are we with that, please?
That will have been completed. The committee will be receiving a full update during the course of the year in terms of where we are with the annual governance statement improvements as well. So my understanding is that's been completed with the staff appraisal process.
Okay, second one.
Thank you. Page 63. Page 63. The people strategy has been drafted and is due for sign-off this month. Which committee will that be coming to, please?
I'm not entirely sure what the sign-off procedure is for that. I know the strategy has been circulated to staff for consultation feedback, and the strategic director who's leading that has got it in tow for the sign-off. But I can come back to you on what the sign-off procedure is going to be for that, councillor.
Thank you. And on pages 72 and 73, it's just a case of perhaps could we be more specific about target dates for these? On page 72, at the top of the page, it's a suggestion to undertake self-assessment. Plans for this to be carried out in 2023. Do you have a more specific date for that? And on page 73, end of fourth paragraph in the middle, a number of outstanding actions will be implemented this year. But again, do we have a more specific target date, please?
Yes. So the self-assessment, in the improvement table for 2023, in the table 2, which is further up on page 39, you will see that there is a target there for undertake the self-assessment with the audit committee, and that's down for January 2024.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so we move to page 18 for the recommendation. This time it's to approve that particular governance, so we need a vote on that one. That members approve of the council's annual governance statement for 22-23. I'll move it from the chair. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Councillor Bolt is seconded. All those in favour, please show. That was unanimous, but thank you, colleagues, for.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sal, for your input. Can we move on to item 9? Strategic risk update 23-24, and I think that's there. Please. 91 to
This report presents a strategic risk register for the committee's consideration. The register has been reviewed and updated by the internal risk management group and senior leadership team. This is in line with the process outlined in the risk management policy, which was approved by this committee in January 2023. strategic risk register contains 14 risks and that there's no additional risk added. Mitigated scores for 3 of the risks have been revised down due to completion of actions. And the change in mitigated score is visually represented by arrows in the far right column within the appendix. Target score for further management action in relation to the risk 1, which is decreasing financial resources and increasing financial pressures. There's an increase to remain at the current mitigated score, which is a high risk. That's due to the recognised completion of the further mitigation actions will not close the current budget gap and deliver a sustainable financial position. It's therefore crucial that SLT members work together on focusing on that financial challenge. Target score within the CR13 cyber threats, again, the target score with further management actions has also been increased to remain at the current mitigated score to recognise that the risks in terms of cyber threats and security threats are ever evolving, and even with completing the mitigation actions, that level of risk will still remain. So I'm happy to take any questions on the report or the risk register.
Any questions, please? Colin?
People have accused me of being quite critical. I deny it, of course. I prefer the word challenging. But I thought this was a quality document. So I think whoever's worked on this and drafted it should be congratulated.
Thank you for that, yes. There have been no other questions. Let's go to the recommendations, which simply says that the report and the strategic risk register as set out in Appendix 1 be considered. All those are okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. That being the last item on the agenda, Councillor Bolton.
Yes, I think as I'm one of the challenges marked perhaps most on internal audit, I'd like to wish them all the best for the future. I shall miss our bantering between each other on these committees.
Microphone.
But thank you for what you've done and the work that you do for us. It's important for members that you do bring these things to our attention and or with the external auditor as well. Without you, we wouldn't know some of these things were going off. We need to hold officers to account when necessary. But it's nice to know that somebody's looking out for our interests and residents' interests as well. Just a pity it costs us much to do it, but that's besides the point.
We have to get that in. Thank you. All right, thank you. Again, I have to say, when going through this, and I obviously meet with officers and say, gosh, do we need all this? Is it all relevant? And I think it was a comment made by 151 officers suggesting that what we do here and the transparency and the detail that you get, as pointed out by Councillor Gore, is far, far more superior than a lot of other places that they go to. I think 7 or 8 pages is something that somebody mentioned at one particular audit. And I think the transparency and the detail is absolutely spot on with warts and all, strengths and weaknesses. And I think I've always said, especially in external audits, is that we need that. It's essential that we have that because it's telling us where we got the weaknesses, where we can improve, the positives, because there's a lot of hard work that's gone into all of this through members being on committees like this, especially the officers. I think that's commendable to all of you, and thank you for it's been a challenging time. Some of it we have to take ownership of it. Some of it it's out of our control. Equally, Mark, this is perhaps your last time with us. I'd like to thank you very much for all the input. Your honesty and integrity and professionalism gives us exactly what we need. We may not like it sometimes, but I think that doesn't matter. What you've done is told us how it is. We need to know that. Thank you very much. And wish you the very best for the future. And we look forward to working with your colleagues again for the future. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you for attending this evening. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Ian?
Just a question, is this the last meeting you're having in this council chamber?
Apparently not, apparently.
I understand there's a young, children, young people's meeting tomorrow, is it tomorrow evening or Thursday evening? One or the other. That'll be the final.
Anna's going to say something to it.
That meeting has been cancelled, probably is the last meeting in the house.
Oh, right.
Oh, right.
This is the last meeting in this chamber.
Oh,
Thank you very much, everybody. Are we switched off?
yes.